Okay, this is video 58B. Cults, too good to be true? Yes. I mean, in some regards, there are certain groups out there with certain ideologies or certain, wouldn't it be better if the world was like this? And you could say, well, give them a go. See how they get on with making the world a better place. Don't stop the cults, kind of thing. Let them see if it works. But I mean, you can't. I mean, cults are a subset of society, but they're not called. They're not called cults because they're a good thing. You know, there's the other side of the story, the deception. You know, and what I've put here is thousands of cults over thousands of years. You could say different civilizations as well. You know, have failed for various reasons. I mean, Daniel 2 in the Bible talks about, you know, the statue, you know, and this perfect society that is coming when Jesus comes back. Or the church is the perfect thing, Jesus the rock. Well, where's this perfect church? Where is this perfect church? You know, and to be fair, you know, being idealistic, wanting the world to be a better place, that's a good thing. It is a good thing. Well, why can't we do this better? Why can't we do that better? Well, that's what politics tries to deal with, doesn't it? You know, but religion too, or the corporate world. Well, why don't we combine these two ideas and make a third product that people will find really good? So making the world a better place, yeah, sure, it's a good idea. But with the cult, it's all the devious ways they go about it. And, you know, I mean, I've put here recruiters are mostly unpaid salespeople. You know, this is the thing. I mean, there's cults I could mention that do these personality tests. That person isn't getting paid to do that personality test. You know, that person isn't getting paid to recruit. If anything, they're getting pittance, which is not very much money, to then spend as vouchers, if you like, on very expensive courses. You know, some of the subtle control mechanisms I've put here as well. Cults will get people to move in together, and hence the rent will be cheaper, or you know, things. If people are living together, it will be cheaper. So cults tend to pack people together. You know, now this also creates a sort of echo chamber. Anyone with doubts about the group will find themselves kicked out. You know, and because they're effectively in the cult 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, apart from maybe when they escape to do a 9 to 5 job, you know, there's people watching over you. You know, I remember with the ICOC in the Kit McKean days, you know, oh, why don't you move in with so and so? You know, and that will be cheaper, wouldn't it? For me, it was, you know, for me, when I moved out from living with my dad, my first place, you know, I went to university before the cult, but coming back, getting a job, and then getting recruited into this cult, and then moving out because it made sense. Oh, you got to get, you know, you got to find somewhere to live. You know, if you live with the group, it will be cheaper. Oh, okay. And in this day and age, it's especially so. You know, I wonder how many landlords who rent out places to cults realise actually how many people are in the property. But what do they care as long as the money comes in, kind of thing, and they look after it, I guess. But there's other things as well. I mean, if you dating, as I mentioned, you know, dating online, it can be a complete gamble. You don't know whether you're going to get a lovely person or a crazed psycho. and it's very hard to tell the difference at first, kind of thing. Um, and yeah, cults keep people busy as well. Now, it might seem wonderful that there's so many things going on, and suddenly, I mean, for me, from being on your own and maybe just having a couple of friends you see once in a while, suddenly there's people everywhere. Oh, this is wonderful. Oh, we're meeting up on Friday, we're meeting up on Wednesday, meeting up on Sunday, getting to know people, especially as a single person, looking to get married or whatever. Wonderful, wonderful, and it's a delusion. It's a delusion, and we'll get into that maybe in part 3. This is sort of part 2 or 58B. So I've gone through, let me just go through this, right? Wonderful at first, yes. It is known as the honeymoon period, by the way. And then later on you realise, which is why most people leave, which is why these groups are obsessed with recruitment. Yeah, they have to recruit to make up for all the people who leave. And they leave once they know what's going on. And at first, obviously, they don't know. So it's, with so many groups, they present themselves very well. But once you join and once you are there, then the cracks start to appear, and then you sort of say, well, hang on a minute. I quite like going to church when I like going to church. I don't like you telling me I have to go 3 times a week, sort of stuff like that. And one of the things I never realised really when I was in the cult is the fact that the leaders decide who marries who, and in the ICOC cult, other Kit McKen cults are the same. You can go on a date on a Saturday night. I mean, I remember in the first year, I probably went on about, 20, 30 Saturday night dates. That's pretty good. Saturday night comes around, probably going to go out on a date then. I think it might 30 or 40, maybe. Most Saturdays. So in the first year, you've met 40 women. I mean, it's almost mandatory. That's the sort of sad part of it. It's like the cult members, the women are told, you need to encourage the guys or they'll look elsewhere, outside, and the guys are told similar, well, you need to up your game or the women will look for guys outside the group who are more successful. So there's a lot of pressure to be, something you're not really. Everybody's bigging themselves up to get married, kind of thing. I mean, you could say, well, that happens with dating anyway, doesn't it? People dress up on a Friday night, but in the real world, it is more authentic. If she's bored of you, you'll know pretty much within the first 10 minutes. But in a cult, somebody can pretend that you're an interesting person because they've been told, to encourage one another, kind of thing, rather than be honest. Another thing why people leave, or it seems wonderful at first, the pressure to give. The pressure to give to the cause, or to give to God, or to give to the mission. But don't actually ask where the money goes. That was a big issue for me. And I thought, well, I pay my tithe, which you don't have to as a Christian because it's old covenant. And then it's like, well, these leaders seem to be, you can't help but notice that, they sort of stay in the nicest hotels, they fly around the world, they might have multiple properties. So initially you look at them like they're the apostles, and then later on you think, hang on a minute, these guys are doing better than everybody else. Why are they not putting their money into missionary work or whatever? Why are they hoarding the money? And again, in a normal, healthy church, It's not just the man behind the pulpit collecting all the money, kind of thing. And another issue, false doctrine. Now, a lot of people who join a cult, a Bible-based cult, let's say, they might have never read the Bible. So somebody can come along and tell you, oh, this is what God wants you to do, and twist the scriptures. And this is what my situation was. I didn't know any different. And I thought, well, God is really, I think the phrase was, calling me higher. God's challenging you to be more godly. No pain, no gain kind of thing. But false doctrine. And then you realise, hang on a minute, I'm saved by grace, not works. And at that point, a lot of people will leave a cult because of doctrine. And the thing is, the false doctrine is essential to keep the group going. But the false doctrine is also why people leave. So with the Kit McKean cults, it was always, oh, you have to make disciples or you're not really a disciple. All these other churches, they're false. They're not doing what God wants, in a very manipulative way. But that can actually seem like a good thing. It can seem like, well, we're better than these other churches because every member is expected to recruit. We have a higher standard, kind of thing. And that can sort of just stroke the religious pride. And so it is a strange dynamic. I mean, I think back to that first year and there was some ups and downs emotionally. I thought, well, these guys really are serious. But they were saying, well, these other churches aren't serious, so they're not Christian. The sort of elitist kind of mindset. Everybody, the women are friendly, but how come they don't want to get married? Lots of reasons. So, the ironic thing is, I spent about 20 years in ICOC, then ICC, then a bit of ICOC again, then left. I can't tell you how many dates I went on. It's got to be hundreds of dates. And a lot of them were enjoyable. Going to a restaurant with a group of people. The general problem with dates in cults is the alpha male. In a cult, generally people go on group dates, so people can monitor each other. But on these dates, you always had an alpha male, a loudmouth that was, the sort of obnoxious loudmouth, boasting type, salesman type person, and it's like the women would find it attractive. Well, he looks confident, why aren't you as confident as him? And it was vile. It was absolutely vile. But, that's the way it is in cults. The alpha male gets all the women kind of thing. But physically, you can't do that. So you've got to pair off one pair at a time kind of thing. So what else is there? Let me just go through this. If I'd known then what I know now, I'd never have joined, obviously. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. Yes. Does it actually function? This is something I want to talk about in the third part. Is this cult ideology even realistic? Does it actually function? And no, they don't. I mean, some of their ideologies are crazy. Some of the groups, they think they're going to be raptured away behind a space comet or aliens. But even the groups that aren't crazy, does their ideology, is it actually functional? And then you get more into the sort of politics of a group, which we will talk about in part 3.